Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to talkBULL. We are back, myself and Colin Lloyd. An incredible weekend over in Frankfurt, the World Cup of Darts. And I can't believe I'm saying this, the first time in their history, Northern Ireland were crowned world champions. Congratulations to Josh Rock and Daryl Gurney. I'm just going to start by saying one of the best finals that we'll probably not only see in pairs, but darts as a whole. It was sublime. Both nations, Northern Ireland and Wales, battling out to the death. Josh Rock, Daryl Gurney, going to win Price, Johnny Clayton. Thank you so much for the entertainment. I mean, Cole, hello. And I'm just going to give it to you right here, right now. And I've already said it's one of the best finals. Everyone said it on telly, it's one of the best finals. In your eyes, being a two-time major winner and former world number one, were you entertained?
Morning, Harry. It was great, wasn't it? At one point, I thought the Northern Irish team were going to run away with it. But then the Welsh boys showed their grit and determination and got back into it. It needed to go to a decided leg, Harry, didn't it? And it did. And my God, what a decided leg. 134, 180, 171, 2 darts into double eight. Northern Ireland crowned very, very worthy champions. They just gelled together and they were superb. They were superb. Darren and Josh, you could see the camaraderie, the laughing, the determination. And it was strange, Harry. One thing I'm going to put to you, the funny thing about it is, Daryl's always been someone to go, like that. He stayed quite subdued, and it was Josh giving it all, and rightly so. How many 180s did he bang in? It was frightening.
It wasn't until, the second to last leg when Daryl Gurney really gave it some to the crowd. And I mean, Cole, it's darts. I mean, you get people that slag off our sport so much, it's just a bunch of drunk fat men just throwing stuff at a board. It's not talent. It's a pub game. Shut up. That right there. If you're living under a rock, if you're an alien that has just landed on Earth, or you're a naysayer, just watch that final. You mentioned the 171 from Josh Rock. Cole, I was sitting at my sofa and I was thinking all of this morning. Obviously, when you go to a sporting event or you watch anything, you try to go to sleep, but you're just buzzing. You're buzzing from what you've just watched. I think that 171, especially this calendar year, that was the biggest and best clutch darts I think we're going to see for a very long time. Like, the audacity of Josh Rock to do that, to leave Daryl Gurney on 16. I mean, Gezi Price was giving him a high five, Cole.
Yeah.
And we know how much of a fierce competitor Gezi Price is. And Gezi was lost for words and he just had to shake his hand. That was, unless we get a Michael versus Michael 9-dart leg again, I don't think you're going to see a more clinical shot than that for the rest of the year in darts.
Well, it was quality. And on the Gezi thing, giving him a high five, that's a respectful thing. They'd battled hard to make it 9-9. And to put things into perspective, his 6 darts that he threw, Josh Rock, 5 of them were treble 19s and a big 20. There was a big 20, treble 19, treble 19. His very next row was 3 treble 19s. And it was exactly the right shot. The old school ways, Harry, years ago, used to be 2 treble 20s and down at the treble 17. Whereas the players of today, they've got a different way of thinking. It's the right way of thinking. Because if you hit a plumb treble 19, you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to fill this. And that's exactly what Josh Rock done. And let's not forget that Gezi hit a 180. He hit a max in that deciding leg as well. So it was a case of, if Daryl had have missed, would it have been a little bit squeaky then? But we'll never know because he didn't. It was a fantastic leg of darts from 2 great players who, in some ways, Harry, for me personally, watching over the weekend, they were quite stand out. If we're going to touch on some other teams, the Dutch were very stand out at one point, but then they faltered and got punished. It's all about, I think, being relaxed and being comfortable with the person you're playing with and having that backup. I'm not saying that the Dutch didn't have that backup. They just created some opportunities, but then it just got to a point where they wasn't capitalising on them opportunities. And listen, that's what makes the tournament so great.
I mean, yeah, I want an investigation to be done by the PDC on the magnet that was in the treble 20 bed, because we speak about Littler and we know Michael Van Gerwen's record of hitting 180s. Josh Rock set a new World Cup record for 180s last night. It was absurd, Cole.
Yeah.
It really was absurd. And Mardle sort of touched on it yesterday off the back of the match about Josh Rock, and we've all had these conversations no matter what circle you're in. And people going, oh, Josh Rock, I thought he was meant to be up there with Luke Littler. He's not really doing anything. Cole, on his day, when he's really clicking, Josh Rock is mustard, mate. He is mustard.
Yeah, that was throughout this World Cup. I think you've seen the best of Josh Rock. That's what he's capable of, Harry. And I don't know whether it's a case of that he lost belief in himself. I don't know. But you know what? The way he's performed over this long weekend, if that doesn't give you incentive to push on to other things, I really don't know what can. Because he was up there. He was enjoying himself. He knew he was playing well. And like I said, that's what he's capable of. And that's why it's not a case of, if. It's a case of when he does win an individual major. A big major as well.
How far off do you reckon he is from that? Because he's obviously, with some players' games, it's like you've got the scoring power. I take Chris Dobie, for instance. You've got the scoring power, but you're not strong on the outer ring, per se. But Josh Rock's got it all. He can check out a ton plus. He can get down the board so easily. And, it could be a matter of, I don't know, months or, 12 months, 18 months. I wouldn't write Josh Rock off to potentially make waves in a match play.
Yeah. Yeah. Harry, he's not off at all. You're asking me how far off is he? He's not off at all. It's just a matter of just what's between his ears. It's just this. We've seen over the weekend, he's certainly got the game, and he's not all about 180s. He's done his fair share of finishing as well. The game is there. The game is there. He burst onto the scene, and everybody was thinking, "Wow, this kid's got something here." He was unfortunate that he sort of he lost his way a little bit. I think looking in, but then you had the brilliance of Luke Humphries, and then the brilliance of Luke Littler, that sort of put his name into the background a little bit. After this weekend's antics at the World Cup, and now being a World Cup champion, and the way he performed and the way he went about his business on that dartboard, he's back in everyone's minds again. And hopefully, and I mean this, Harry, hopefully he's got all that belief back that he'd possibly lost about how good he actually is and how well he can perform. Because, like I say, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of when, not if. He will win a major. I'm not going to say what major, but he will win an individual major. He's too good not to.
Dare I say, potential, if the form continues, Josh Rock Premier League next season. I mean, you look at that scoring power. Home crowd of Belfast as well. I mean, if it keeps going the way that it is, Cole, he's definitely on my list for the top 8. Well, I know we're months and months and months away, but
yeah. The thing that he can't do, Harry, is he's waking up this morning, himself and Daryl. We're talking Josh Rock. Daryl done his bit as well. Daryl put in some good performances, some clinical finishes, and this is both good for them. They're both qualified now for the Grand Slam. But the one thing is, Harry, now it's great. They've won the World Cup. That was yesterday. You move on to today. Fly home today I don't know what sort of state they're going to be in, bless them. But Tuesday, there's Pro Tours. Wednesday, there's Pro Tours. Thursday, there's Pro Tours. You know, get back to the grind. Get back at it. Get back on it. And show not only to other people, but prove to yourself why you're the World Cup champions. You've done it because you've played absolutely superb. And so just go there and carry on grinding. Continue with what you've been doing over the weekend, and let's bring it over for the next few days, because their confidence must be so high at the minute, Harry. I just hope they haven't celebrated too much, but if I was them, I probably would have as well. So,
oh, of course you would. Of course we would as well. I mean, good old punt of the black stuff in Frankfurt. I was in Frankfurt last year. It's an incredible night out as well. And I'll be able to let everyone know how Daryl Gurney's feeling, because at 10:45 this morning, I'll be interviewing him on Zoom. It might be me doing all of the talking after I imagine that he polished off about 50 pints last night in Germany. But Cole, just before we move on, obviously it's not just the Josh Rock show. Daryl Gurney, clutch moments at the same time as well. He's the one that secured the checkout. He said to Sky that he was touching cloth a little bit when he went to that double eight, almost pooing himself.
Yeah.
Nerves of steel. We haven't seen Daryl get his hands on a trophy for a very, very long time. In this decade.
Yeah.
Really, you have to go back 2018, I'd probably say. I think you won a Players' Championship after that. Maybe it was Players' Championship in 2018, Grand Prix in 2017. Yeah. But the confidence that will give him now as well. Daryl Gurney may be 39, but I mean, that's not old in darting terms when you look at the likes of Paul Lim. Paul Lim, bloody hell, was playing this weekend at the age of 71, and he was still throwing in a max. I mean, age is just a number when it comes to darts, but the confidence that Daryl Gurney will have off the back of this as well will probably be insane.
Yeah, it will be. The only problem for Daryl Gurney is Daryl Gurney. Yeah, I love Daryl a bit. So I've had some nice chats with Daryl over the years, some really good chats. I know his family quite well. And he's got all the talent in the world, Harry, but I sometimes feel that he goes on too many missing lists. He's tinkering around a little bit with his setup. But listen, like you say, hopefully that's given him the confidence now and the belief, because he did play his part, not just in the final. He played his part throughout the whole weekend. And he's just got to build on that. Now it's a case of, yes, he's a World Cup champion with his teammate Josh Rock. That's all well and good. That's great. And they're going to be that for the next year. Now it's time to knuckle down and focus on yourself. Me, myself and I, Harry. I've been a big believer of that over the years. Me, myself and I. Me. That sounds selfish. Sorry, we're in a selfish sport. You're an individual. And hopefully Daryl is the same as Josh, like I just said about Josh. Hopefully now they can push on for possibly bigger and better things. Let's not forget, Daryl said about touching cloth. He's a 2-time major winner. You don't get handed majors, Harry. Yeah. You don't get handed majors. You have to win them. He's won ranked events before. Hopefully he's believing in himself now that he can go on and do even more in the game. Like you say, he's only 39. I mean, he's still a puppy. There's still life in him, and he has got that grit and determination as a player.
The only criticism that I've got of the Northern Irish from the weekend was, and this is so stupid, what I'm about to say, Josh Rock, because obviously he was leading the charge. He'd be the first one to throw and start legs, and Josh Rock would start so many legs with a 180, and it was just Daryl Gurney having to follow up with that. It was like, these boys could be on for a 9 here, and I can't count how many times that Daryl Gurney hit that single 20 bed. Sorry, and I was just like, oh please, just praying that we get a 9 darter and doubles. Like, oh, it's gone into the single again. Yeah. It's fine. But boys, congratulations, Northern Ireland. I'd love it if every football team's doing a bus parade. I'd love it if they did some sort of bus parade convertible in Northern Ireland. It would be absolutely insane. Cole, quick mention on the Welsh as well. Consistently so good over the weekend. The partnership of Gedwin Price and Johnny Clayton, we know it's so good. They know how to win the World Cup. They know how to perform in the World Cup. There was moments where we thought, especially against the Netherlands as well, going into that first break, we were probably thinking that Wales were down and out. But Johnny Clayton, mate, the clutch finishing at the same time this weekend was a joke. Gezi to get him over the line against the Dutch as well, with that 100 checkout, the 20 tops, exhibition sort of stuff, Cole. But, you've got, when it comes to the Welsh, if you don't put them down and you leave them on that sort of like high ton plus checkout, they will bully you. There's no sort of like laying up against the Welsh or setting up the shot. You need to take it out, otherwise Johnny Clayton and Gerwyn Price are going to let you know. Then all of a sudden, they've won the leg, Gezi's doing the raw.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Harry. That's exactly what they do. And they're very good at doing it. The good thing about those two guys, they enjoy each other's company. They're both brilliant dart players, outstanding dart players, and everybody else knows what they're capable of. And when you've got that nice little gel, Harry, they've played together now. This must be, their fourth World Cup together? I think something like that, fourth or fifth World Cup together. And they've won it. They've been past champions. They know how to win it. And they just gel. They feed off of each other. And even when one's not massively performing, the other one will G him up and say, come on. And like they've said it in their interviews, haven't they, Harry, that, I let Johnny down a little bit there, but, I tried to keep in there and Johnny kept me going. And then another interview, Johnny goes, well, I weren't too clever there, but Gezi got us through and whatever. But there's no blame game. It's a team event and they're just doing their best for themselves and their country. And listen, they're a credit to the sport and they're a credit to Wales. They put in another fantastic tournament, but just come up short from the brilliance, really, of a deciding leg.
18 minutes in. Shall we talk about them?
Go on. Listen, we got to mention. Listen, because we've mentioned two of them. We've got to mention the big two. We've got to mention the Scots, and we've got to mention the English. Yeah, go on, go right ahead. I'll follow your lead.
Yeah. Well, I don't really know where to begin with this one, to be honest, Cole. Pedestal in capital letters. There's so many connotations with football. When you go into a major tournament as England fans, no matter what the squad is, if it's the golden generation of David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, you always think it's a dead certain that you're going to win a competition if it's the World Cup or the Euros. I think it was the same situation with Luke Humphries and Luke Littler, world number one, world number two. And I think they got absolutely smashed out of the park by the Germans, Cole, playing them in their own backyard. I mean, congratulations for the MBEs, by the way, for the King's birthday list. I mean, so many crucial darts missed at double. At the break, 22% on their doubles as well, Cole.
Yeah.
They weren't at it. They weren't at it at all. But big credits Germany. They were unreal. Petresco and also Martin Schindler, who's a class act. We'll get onto him in a little bit. Will they be beaten up by this or not, Cole? Because I've been seeing a few people on social media just like giving them dogs abuse, and I'm just like, get over yourself a little bit.
Well, Harry, I think we touched on it before. We've spoken about it where, the top players at this moment in time, they don't really play pairs events. And that's what it is. It's the World Cup, but it's pairs. Luke and Luke didn't gel. And I think we touched on this as well, Harry. They may be the number one and number two ranked players in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's God-given that they're going to win the event. Because there's other teams with class players representing their country also. And the thing about the Germans, they're performing in front of a home crowd. And as much as there were times where the two Lukes gave them the opportunities, they took them opportunities. So, it's not as if... I mean, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be disappointed. I know it's not a ranked event. Luke Humphries was going in there as defending champion. He won it last year, obviously, with Michael Smith. Were they overconfident? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so. They're both class players, both world champions. both riding the crest of a wave at this moment in time. It's gone, Harry. If I was one of those players, you can dwell on it for a little bit, but it's gone now. Like I said just a little while ago, time to get back over here, back to Leicester, Pro Tour events. That's ranking money. That goes on your ranking. Yes, it would have been great to have been a proud Englishman, have the England team win it again, but unfortunately they didn't gel together. They didn't. I think it was a case of, Harry, in some ways, watching in on it. I think they both sort of struggled with. I don't want to say the pressures of it. I just think they struggled with. They were the overwhelming favourites, and they weren't clicking. They weren't firing. And I think if one would have started really going for it, I think the other one might have tagged along. They were just sort of as if they were waiting for each other. Do you know what I mean? And that waiting for each other, it never happened. So the train was already pulling out of the station. It was too late to jump on board. But listen, disappointed. I'm disappointed for them. You know, everybody can jump on, best two players in the world, should have won it easy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, you know, sometimes that just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in life, Harry, and it doesn't happen in sport. It's as simple as that. Shocks happen. That's what makes sport great.
You know, some people, I think people just love to jump on Luke Littler as well for anything that he does. And we've had this conversation before about sort of you put people on this pedestal, you rate them so highly, you say how brilliant they are, then they do one thing and then all of a sudden people turn on them, call them an arrogant such and such. But people are kicking off about his conduct going off the stage after he'd lost to the Germans. Quick handshake, get off the stage, and people were just saying. Some people were making up that he didn't even shake Petresco and also Martin Schindler's hand. I mean, if you're really sort of going to those levels and being that pathetic, like shut up, seriously, because I mean, Cole, you've lost in big finals. You've won big finals at the same time. I know John Park gave you a big cuddle at the match play, but at the same time, these people are competitors. There's a lot of pressure. There's probably embarrassment from them as well, because they're probably thinking, do you know what, we've just been absolutely flipped by the Germans here. We're world number one, world number two. What was it, Jockey and Bristow back in the day when Jockey was on his knees, cuddling Eric Bristow after he just won the world title, and Bristow wants to get off stage. It was the same with Della as well. It's not an arrogance thing.
Yeah.
You just don't want to sort of be on the stage. You've literally gone to Frankfurt for no reason whatsoever. I just think, you know, you can't sort of change the people and change like their opinions. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but you know, to say he's a poor competitor, I mean, whatever I do that's something competitive, I'd be like, yeah, great, get on with it. I don't want to stay on the stage and sort of, you know, give them their plaudits at the same time. No,
I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm not saying that this is what's gone on one little bit, but don't forget that Ricardo and Luke Littler have had a run-in before. I'm not saying that was anything to do with it whatsoever, but you've just been beat. Like you say, it's maybe a little bit of embarrassment and whatever. It is what it is, Harry. You know, it is what it is. It's controversial. It's exciting. It gets people tuning in again. It is what it is. The Germans won, and I don't mean that in the way I've just sort of like said it, because Ricardo Pietreczko and Martin Schindler played exceptionally well. They gelled together as well. They gelled together and they put in a performance. And it was a great performance. You know, the averages were roughly the same. I think they were averaging around 93.5 England and 93.5 the Germans. But the Germans, it was a case of every time that Martin or Ricardo had an opportunity, they took it. Luke didn't. And like I said, Harry, that's top class sport for you, mate. You know, you could have a football team that's had sort of like 14 shots on goal, and they've lost 1-0. So they've had 14 opportunities, and the other team's had 3 opportunities, but they've scored one of them. It's just, listen, mate, it's just life. Get over yourselves. That being the fans that were looking in and the players. Move on. Like I said, there's Pro Tours this week. Start focusing on that, and then not too far away now, Harry. Not too far away now is the World Match Play. So people need to start getting their head on for a big major.
Cole, Gedwin Price, obviously, and Johnny Clayton did their post-match interview off the back of the final loss and had some very interesting words about the English. Give this a watch.
All the teams, when we all first turned up in the first day, the only, and I'm not just saying this because they lost, but the only two players that didn't turn up together, didn't sit together, didn't play as a team, I'm not saying who they are, but they didn't win their first game. But no, you need it. You need to turn up together. You need to be as a team. You turn up as a team. You practice together. You sit together. It's a team ethic. And it didn't show with England, and it showed on the board. And they're great players individually, but you need to be a team.
I mean, he's not saying any names, Cole. Old Gezi, he's trying to be. He's being a smart man, but it's quite obvious, I think, who Gedwin Price is hinting at certain points of that. Key words for me: don't sit together, don't play as a team, don't turn up together. We know that Humphries and Littler don't train with each other outside of the World Cup. Luke Humphries' training partner is Stephen Bunting, but has Gezi got a bit of a point in this or not, or is he blown it out of proportion a little bit?
No, I think he's hit the nail on the head. Because if you actually looked at that match between the two Lukes and Martin and Ricardo, they didn't look like they were gelling together. I'm not saying they weren't. Obviously, Gezi was there. I wasn't there to see what was going on. But you have to put things aside, Harry, when you're representing your country. We're not saying that you have to be the best of pals and whatever. I think that's what made the likes of Eric Bristow and John Lowe so good. Because as much as they didn't really... I'm not saying they weren't friends. I'm not saying that at all. But there was that rivalry. There was a huge rivalry. And, I've seen it somewhere from John, and I've certainly heard it out of Eric's mouth, that if I hit a 140, I knew Lowe wanted to hit a 180. If I hit a 180, I knew Lowe wanted to hit a 180. And so you just fed off of each other. And so for while that event was on, you were friends. You were great mates. You'd done everything together. And that makes for me, it would make for a better relaxed atmosphere when you're actually standing on the hockey. If they didn't feel comfortable doing that with each other, then so be it. I mean, that's their business, Harry. I'm not going to get too involved in it. It doesn't affect me. It's none of my business. They just done what they thought was right for themselves. But it wasn't an individual event. It was a team event. And so perhaps next year, because I think it will definitely be those two again next year, maybe it's something they might sit down and have a chat about and try to address some issues that possibly went on. Like I said, Harry, neither of us were there. We can only surmise things as to what we're hearing back. But listen, you don't get many opportunities. You're representing your country all year round because you're proud of from wherever you're from, whether you're from England, Ireland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Timbuktu, wherever. But there's within the PDC system, Harry, there's only that one opportunity where you actually pull a shirt on where it has your country's name on it. And that's the weekend that's just passed. And the Northern Irish are the ones that proudly walk off with the cup.
Right, should we get into the stinkers from the weekend then? The absolute rotten eggs. Because there was some absolute stink fests over the weekend. I know we had I wouldn't call it a stinker, it was an amazing moment when one of the Czech lads celebrated the checkout and his tooth came out. Did you see that, Carl?
I didn't see that, no.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. Obviously, he was celebrating, and then his false tooth came out. Did you ever have a case? Because I know, would you have played with Jockey when it was the back end of his sort of career? Because Jockey played into the 2000s.
No, unfortunately, Jockey had already finished when I come along. I was fortunate enough to actually play against a lot of the others like Keith Deller, Eric Bristow, John Lowe, Lazarenko and whatever. But unfortunately, Jockey was one of the only legends I never got to meet. Shame, really.
Well, I asked that because obviously Jockey was famous for having his false teeth and used to put his false teeth in a pint of Fanta every night or something stupid like that. Did you ever have a situation where a player had been celebrating false teeth or the little sort is that a false tooth as well? Or just sort of like chip? Yeah, it's all false teeth. Have you ever played with someone if it was down the pub, amateur level, and they've celebrated so hard and their teeth have come out of their mouth, or is that once in a lifetime stuff that we saw in Frankfurt?
I'll tell you what, he won't thank me for this, but Steve Beaton's got a cap at the front sort of thing, you know. And something had happened, and he turned up one weekend. Of course, he's a tooth missing because he was getting it all sorted. He was in the middle of getting it sorted out. And the likes of myself, Dennis Ovens and Roland Schock, because we obviously felt sorry for him. Steve, just stop smiling. Just stop laughing and stop smiling. You're putting us off. Because obviously there was this gap that we're not used to seeing. But that's about it, really. I've never seen any antics where someone celebrates and a tooth goes flying through the air.
And Steve Beaton, you can never get him to stop smiling anyway.
No,
I don't think I've ever seen him with a straight face. Right, back to the stinkers when Belgium, the exit, underwhelming. The Filipinos were sensational. I mean, they deserved to win at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, we know that Van den Berg's had time away from darts. He'll be playing in the Pro Tour this week. Mike de Decker, Cole, I mean, I just don't think his career, I'm not saying progressing where it should be, because he's still picking up some wins on both the Euro Tour and also the Pro Tour as well. Lost to Luke Littler on the Euro Tour this year. But, I mean, doesn't really feel like a major champion, does he, at this moment in time?
He hasn't pushed on, has he? He won that World Grand Prix, playing and throwing some sensational stuff. And you just thought to yourself, right, he's finally breaking through now. He gets crowned the World Grand Prix champion and boom, he's just stopped. He's just stopped again. And he hasn't really, Harry. He hasn't pushed on as a major winner, and he hasn't really stamped any sort of authority that you thought he would do, because he's more than capable of doing it. He's a class player. But listen, we don't know what happens behind the scenes, Harry. Perhaps something's been going on. I don't know. He's still a young man. He's still got plenty of time, and hopefully, he can reset and recharge and start going again. But like you say, a little bit underwhelming. But he's got plenty of career left in him, I'd say.
Do you want to join me in a little sing-song when I go, Scotland get battered everywhere they go? Scotland get battered everywhere they go. Everywhere they go. 8-0, Cole. You can't be losing 8-0 to anyone when you're the likes of Peter Wright and Gary Anderson. Two-time world champions, for goodness sake. They may be. Go on.
Can I just say to all our subscribers and our listeners and all my Scottish friends and all my Scottish colleagues, Harry sung that. That's why I kept quiet.
I've got a lot of Scottish mates, all right? And it's just good to give them, bring them down a peg every so often. Even though I love the Scots, I love them. But, Cole, that was an absolute stink fest if ever I've seen one from Peter Wright and Gary Anderson. No click at all. I mean,
I get it.
I said about Josh Rockstarts being magnetised to the treble 20 bed. Peter Wright's were bloody magnetised to the 1 bed, for goodness sake, Cole. I mean, it took them 8 legs to get a sight on a double. And, what makes me think about this as well, I think that they were so bad because Peter Wright was clean-shaven.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. Yeah, he was clean-shaven. Listen, they put in a sloppy performance. I think they averaged 78, I think it was, between them as a team. Very not like Gary Anderson or Peter Wright. I will defend them on that front. But let's not take away, Harry, the performance that the Dutch put in. Averaging 103.5, 104 as a pair. every opportunity they got, they took it. And they had plenty of opportunities and they took them all. Yeah, listen, they'd have been disappointed. You wouldn't have expected Gary Anderson and Peter Wright to put in a performance like that. But like I said, Harry, sometimes it's a funny old game, pairs. You know, sometimes you don't feel as though you're getting a flow going. And that very much looked like that for those two guys. I wouldn't have expected them, if they were going to get beat by the Dutch two, Jan van Veen and Danny Noppert, I wouldn't have expected it to be 8-0. It was. Yeah. That's just the way it is. Like I said, Harry, the great thing about not only with darts but within top class sport, you get some stinkers, you get some shockers, you get some shocks, and that was a shock. Not that the Dutch beat the Scottish team, but that they beat them in the way that they did, in the fashion that they did. But yeah, they'll be disappointed. But hey, it is what it is. It's over now. Will it be those two performing next year for Scotland? Who knows? Cameron Menzies is blasting up the rankings, and so we might have a different pairing next year for Scotland.
Right, big mentions before we go. The Germans, I thought they gelled together so nicely. Obviously slapped England. They come back against Australia. Northern Ireland, different story. But Pikachu and Martin Schindler, I've said it for so long that Martin Schindler is going to be a major champion at some point. The Dutch, 3 straight whitewashers as well. Tore Scotland apart, like we just mentioned. Yeah. You know, it was that 5-3 lead over Wales going into the break, but Danny Noppert just couldn't get it going. And Cole, for the final honourable mentions, I think it'd be, you know, unfair not to mention these guys, and that's the lads from Hong Kong and also the Philippines as well. Yeah. Like you're looking at Paolo Nebrida, you're looking at Lawrence as well, you're looking at Yok Lin Yi, Lok Young as well. Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it over the weekend, me and you, and I saw a lot of people speaking about it over the weekend. I think Bars did an interview with them about speaking about them going to Q-Score and how much help they need with funding and stuff like that. Yeah. These guys are capable. I mean, we know that Q-School can be so tough for these players, and great that they're on the Asian tour. But if they want to be competing in these majors, they probably will get in. They will get through in the qualifiers for the Worlds. They will. Yeah. But you know, they need to kind of make the life decision and think, if I'm going to progress in my career of a darts player, because they are all phenomenal. They are all phenomenal. They're not flash in the pan sort of characters, that they probably need to think about the commitment of moving to either the UK or somewhere in Europe. But it's just so difficult for these players, isn't it? Like, especially when they've probably not got a lot of financial backing, but they could make serious waves over here.
I think where you say about financial backing, Harry, I think the systems that are in place down in Asia, they know they're good enough. And they will do things to support and bring to make sure those players have the opportunity to come over here to try and get a tour card and be consistent travellers, and be consistent, if they did get a tour card, consistently continue to support them on their role of potentially becoming a professional darts player. I think we had Russ Bray on, didn't we, whilst the Premier League was on. And, you know, I've known Russ Bray 20 plus years now. And Russ has always said, Russ is an ambassador now for the Professional Darts Corporation. And Russ spends a lot of time in Asia helping to run and organise the Asian tours and their qualifying system. And Russ has been saying for so long, Harry, so long. He said, I'm telling you now, he said, the darts in Asia is just getting better and better and better. And I think we've seen that, Harry, haven't we, over the weekend? We've had, a couple of the guys that have qualified and played in the World Championships. They certainly haven't let themselves down. And it's a huge market, Harry. I've been privileged to go to Japan, China, Kuala Lumpur throwing darts and whatever and competing against these people. There are so many good players down there, Harry. It's just a matter of time before they consistently break through, and we have consistent players coming from Asia who have qualified and have got a tour card. It's happened in the snooker, Harry. There's no reason why it can't happen in the darts. And not only not only can it not happen in the darts, it will happen in the darts. It's going to happen in the darts. We are going to have constant players from Asia getting tour cards, and they're going to be over here consistently and playing some great stuff because they're dedicated, and you know they'll become gods down in Asia for who they are and what they're doing. And you know, good luck to them. And I think I'm right in saying, Harry. I know I'm right in saying. I don't think I'm right. It's great for the game because the game. You want the game being worldwide. You want worldwide competitors. And listen, if we start getting more players from Asia, from America, Canada, getting tour cards and qualifying for big majors, it actually makes it then a proper world tour.
No, yeah, 100%. And, you know, that's was what I was thinking over the weekend. Obviously, Hong Kong got quite far into the competition. I was just like, the message that will send to not only the rest of the world, but also inspiring people as well. But, you know, it's good at the same time that Northern Ireland won it as well, even though we've had some great sports stars coming out of Northern Ireland over the years. I mean, snooker's been a top one. You've had George Best coming out of there as well. But that Daryl Gurney and Josh Rock as well is just going to inspire the next generation to want to go to darts clubs, eventually go into a Super League and potentially go to Q School as well. So it's a win-win situation. And like you were saying about Asia as well, it's growing everywhere. And we've got the infrastructure. We've got it there. Let's keep it going. I know a lot of people slag off the World Cup, but Carl, I actually think over the weekend that was banging. That was actually banging. It was incredible entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, actually, stop. Wait. Cole, we're about to finish up here. Mm-hmm. So, have you been practicing your script, your lines? No, you've not. You were so good at it back in the Premier League days, Cole. What message have you got to the fans? What do they need to do so they can keep seeing your beautiful face? My God, is it beautiful?
Right, everyone. Pay attention. If you like what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing, like and subscribe to the link below, and you can listen to the dulcet tones of myself and Harry Durham on a very consistent basis. How was that?
It's Durham. D-U-R-H-A-M. It's always Deer. We always say Durham.
It's Durham.
Durham, D-U-R-H-A-M, like the university, city, county. Ladies and gentlemen, just like the big man said, please remember to like and subscribe just down below. Leave us a comment, and we'll be back with you very, very soon. Major season is coming. Next stop, the match play, Blackpool. Can't wait.